This video is still on using Google Sheets. This follows on from the first video, and we're going to look at what we can do with numbers, how we can get the machine to do some calculations for us, answer some questions. So this is the same data set that we used before, the number of electors, number of people on the electoral register by constituency in England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. So we are going to look at these numbers, and what we're going to do is some calculations. And the way into doing calculations here is always by the equal sign. As soon as you put an equal sign in, the spreadsheet knows that you're trying to calculate something. Maybe it's a simple calculation, just adding the contents of two cells, or maybe it's something more complicated. But at its simplest, you say equals whatever's in this cell, so 71,000 and something, which it understands as D2, plus whatever's in this cell, for example. So it's going to add the contents of D2 to the contents of D3 and give us 131,000. Up here on the top left, once you click on that cell, it will show you the formula, the calculation, if you like, behind that's generating the number. So when you're not in that cell, there's nothing up here on the top left, but once you move into it, it shows you what is generating the 131,000. Now you can edit this. You can say, I don't want D3, I want D4. So D2 plus D4 gives us this. You can change the arithmetic, so you can take one away from the other, or you can also edit directly in the cell. You can divide one by the other, or you can multiply like this. And you can get adventurous, combine things. You can say multiply that one by that one and then divide the whole lot by this one. Great. I'm not sure what use that number is to anybody, but that just shows you how it works. And now you can see still what's going on. That's our little sums are in there generating 58,000. Now that's fine if you just have a few cells, but supposing we wanted to do the first 100, then we would say we definitely do not want to do this, right? One plus the other, etc. So what we will do is we will tell it sum, right, which is a formula or a function, if you like, and then we need to tell it what to sum, right? It will carry out this calculation automatically. It knows what to do with sum, but reasonably enough, it needs to know what needs to be added up. And at this point, you can simply select the things you want added up, and you can see it's put in D2 to D18 as the things that are going to be summed, and there we go. This kind of dragging, let's double click, open this up and remove that. This kind of thing is fine if it's just a dozen cells or something, but if we want to do the whole lot, this data set goes down, has 650 constituencies. So in that case, we would be better off simply writing in, I want to go all the way to 651, because we'd be a long time dragging it all the way down. So there you go. That tells us the sum. Well, it tells us now the sum, 46 million. And if we backspace, we can just delete the entire cell. So we hit backspace to delete, and away it goes. Now that was sum, but we could also say, for example, I want you to find the smallest value in everything from D2, and that's colon to D651. So that's, again, it's just carrying out a calculation. Once it knows what the cells it needs to examine are, or use for its calculation, it will tell us what is the smallest value in there, and the answer is 21,000. That's not terribly useful because then we have to go and figure out who has the 21,000, but it's an example. You might want to know what the average is, which is a more useful formula. So again, equals average. What is it that we want averaged? We want everything D2 to D651, and that's 72,000. We might, for example, want the average size in Wales. So let's jump down, command down arrow. Oh, we're in Northern Ireland. Okay. Where did we put Wales? I suspect just before Scotland, yeah. So Wales runs, at the moment, up to 574 from 535. So we could ask, no, what have I done? There we go. We could say I'd like the average, but for D535, no, 535 to D574, and that will give us the average number of people by constituency in Wales, number of people on the electoral register, and we have 57,000. So what else can we do? There are more advanced formulas, but we won't look at those in this video, but we can do things, for example, like there's a formula called count unique, right? And what that does is it counts each thing in a series one time. So if you look at column C here, we've got a load of B's and C's, and we might want to know, okay, how many different things are there? Well, now we know, because it's not very complicated, there are two different things, right? There are B's and there are C's. But if we were to say, I want you to examine all of these and tell me how many different kinds of things, it should tell us there are two different kinds of things. And there we go, because it has gone through all of this and said, okay, there's a B, that's one type of thing, and then there's a C, that's one type of thing, and that's it. So that's count unique equals count unique. Very, very useful. And there's a lot more like that, but we'll look at them in another video. So that's doing some basic sums. Now, the next thing we'd like to do is apply a little bit of arithmetic to all the cells. So for example, let's say we want to get half of the population. So we're going to say, in this cell, I would like you to do a calculation. I would like you to take the number of people, and I'd like you to divide it by 2, please. Okay, great. It did it. Right, we went from 71,000 to almost 36,000. Now I'd like to do it for this as well. So we could go equals and do the same thing, divided by 2, okay, and so on, right? Except this would take an awful lot of time, and more importantly, not only would it take a lot of time, it would probably introduce some mistakes. We'd probably make a mistake somewhere. So the way to do this is to select this cell, which, remember, is actually a formula, right? It says equals D2 divided by 2. And now when we select it, it has a little tiny little black square in the bottom right. And if we drag this, let's just do the first 20. It will take that formula and it will apply it on each row. Now what's particularly nice is that, okay, it had D2 divided by 2 when we started. When we drag it to row 3, it adjusts. Wouldn't be much use if it took the numbers in Aldershot and dropped them in here. No, it knows it's moved to a new row, so it takes the numbers in Aldridge Brownhills, and then it takes these in Ultra General Sale West, and so on. And that is extremely effective. If you need to go all the way to the bottom, I believe you can simply double click on the on the little square, and it will automatically fill in everything until it runs out of things on the left. Yeah, so now there we go. This is extremely useful when you start wanting to calculate averages for constituency or local authority or something like this. Now, that if, for example, what we just did there, if we didn't have any information in this cell, for example, I've just taken it out, then this little double clicking on the bottom right square would stop there, because it would run out of information to apply the formula to. So we can Control Z and remove that, Control Z, put back in the number, and then probably, let's just do it again. So there it is. That's D20 divided by 2, and we want the whole thing to the end. There we go. Now, what does that leave us to do? Two other things, and then that's it. We might find that we want to paste some of this information. So let's take the first 10 of these numbers that we calculated. Tell us something, in theory, interesting. And we might want to paste that into another sheet or somewhere else. And if we do, so let's make a new sheet. Okay. And let's paste in those numbers. And you can see we have a problem, because if you look at what we did originally, it's all referenced to other cells. So this number isn't actually the number 35,000. What it is whatever is in D2 divided by 2. So here it's trying to go, what's in D2? How do I divide it by 2? It gets into a bit of a muddle. So the way around this is to copy it, and then under Edit, good, not to paste, but to paste special, and to say we just want the values. Okay, we don't want the formulas or any of the calculations being done behind. We just want whatever the value is in the cell, and there we go, we get just the value. Okay, and you can see that when you select these, nothing appears in the top left. There's no calculation being done. It's just the number. So what is that? Divided by 2. Okay, and the last thing we need to see briefly is the question of types. So you'll see that these cells are all pushed to the left because this is text for the spreadsheet. That is, the spreadsheet understands this data to be textual data. In fact, it's the case for the constituency codes, the names of constituencies, the type, and here it pushes everything to the right because it understands this to be numbers. So for example, if we write the number 123, it understands this to be a number. If we were to tell it by going to Format and then Text, and then saying it's not, don't automatically guess what it is. I'm telling you this is text for some reason, right? It could be a some kind of index number that's not actually, that we don't actually want to calculate, but just operates as a kind of name. So we could say this is text, and so you can see that it's understood this to be text. We'll do this. It's understood this to be a number, and probably the most interesting example of this is if you put in the number 44460 or something like that. It'll go, okay, that's 44,460. But if you tell it that actually it's not the number 44,000, it is a date, it will supply the date. That's because it understands dates as the number of days since January the 1st, 1900. So if we put in, for example, the 1st of October 2021, it understands it's a date. If we were to tell it, actually, it's not a date, it's a number, it will adjust it and make it 44,000, because behind that date is actually a number that says how many days since the 1st of January. Now, we don't come across that often, but sometimes you'll be surprised. You'll import something, and instead of a column of dates, you'll end up with a column of 44,000s or something. And it's simply an interesting example to show, just because we understand that this is text, it's not a number, and that this is a number, the machine can basically follows the instructions it's given. It guesses it a lot of the time and gets it right, but sometimes it gets it wrong. Sometimes you need to adjust it. So that's types of data. So there you go. That's some basic, doing some basic sums, pasting it, and formulas, and a little bit of data types.